Evening.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Hey there. Hello, Mr. Wright.
How are you?
Living the dream. But I got my brackets done, so let the games begin.
Last year she beat me. She won.
Who won?
Sandy.
She beat you on brackets?
She beat all of us.
Oh, I love that. I love that.
I know you do.
I did men's and women's brackets this year. I was very excited.
Yes, this is interesting. I can't predict who's going to win. It's that close.
No, wait, come here. See Mr. Wright. He remind me of that man with them wearing them big glasses. He right.
Good evening, Ms. Commodore.
You know he getting the stroke? Yeah.
He's saying, oh, he's saying stuff.
Who's this?
Okay, it's 6:30. I'm going to give it one more minute to see if anyone else logs on from the advisory committee.
Yes. Ms. Hummel is on vacation this week.
Yeah, she did. She relayed that to us as well as another person.
She will be watching the recording.
Awesome.
If you have any questions as we go in the Q&A, please. And in the chat is a link. Hold on. A link to tonight's agenda and our presentation.
Okie doke. We're at 6:31. So
Yeah.
I'm
Can you put that presentation and agenda in the chat again, please?
Josh will handle that.
Thank you so much.
No
All
problem.
right, Mr. Cuff.
Okay, so I would like to thank everyone for coming to the first Budget Advisory Council of this year's budget season. I have a presentation which I shared with the board members as well as the members of the Budget Advisory Committee. So everyone should have that, but we're going to run through this tonight. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop occasionally so that if any questions arise that we address them immediately, as opposed to trying to recap and go backwards is what I'm going to do. So let me share my screen and we will start from there.
So that means no one be shy about asking questions.
Well, hopefully there won't be too many questions, Jennifer. I mean, let's go there. Hold tight. I have to stop 1 second. Let me redo this 1 second. Make sure I do it right. Everyone.
Hello, Ms. Hill.
Slide that over and now we'll go. Okay, there we go. If everyone can see it, let me know. Awesome, thank you very much. Come on. Okay, we're gonna do it this way then. All right, here we go. So first of all, what I want to do is, I believe we only have one member of the Budget Advisory Council on the board, and that's Renita Austin. If you want to introduce yourself.
Hill is here, Mr. Cuff.
Pardon?
Miss Darlene Hill is here.
Oh, great. She didn't pop up on my screen.
Right.
So if the two people on the council would like to introduce themselves quickly and what town you represent, then we'll go forward. So Ms. Austin's the first person I see.
Hi, good evening. My name is Renita Austin, and I'm a resident of Yale, former councilwoman as well.
Awesome. And Ms. Hill? Oh, we'll come back.
Right. She appears to be muted.
Okay, so the first thing we're going to cover is the budget calendar. The link is provided here. I think most people, it was approved back in November of this year. I'm not going to read through it. The biggest thing that's coming up for us on this budget calendar, and it's not necessarily listed here, but in the date somewhere in the middle of May, probably to the latter part of May, we'll actually get our final BEF and SEF numbers. And I'm going to touch on that later on, but that's going to be a real stickler or a real important cog in our budget process. Okay, so the budget calendar is there. It's on our website. It's on in this document as well. If anyone wants to review it later on, you'll see we're in this March area right here, and you'll see the important steps that are coming along from PDE.
And Jeff, can you just indicate what BEF and SEF is?
Yes, I'm sorry. So BEF, yes, correct. So BEF is basic education funding, which is our major state subsidy. SES is our special ed funding, which is the money. These are the monies that we receive for running our special ed program, and basic ed education funding is a basic catch-all for all of our other programs. And we'll touch on that later on, a couple slides down. So the first thing we're going to talk about, and again, this is going to be a refresher, and I think it's always good to start there. Some people are aware of it, some people are not. So these are the basic budget composition of our budget, and this is every school budget with every school district. Your budget is composed of your revenues as well as your expenditures. And you'll see up top, our revenues are composed of our local revenues, state revenues, federal revenues, and total revenues. And your expenditures are your instructional, and these are all broken out by PDE. Is your instructional, your support services, non-instructional support services, debt service. So on the next slide, you're going to see what that looks like in totality. Because I know there's a lot of lingo out there that people are like, hey, what does this mean? So we're going to start with the revenue component. What I did was I pulled up last year's audited figures from 2021. And because that's the most concrete number we have to give everyone a good shot of what our local revenue is composed of. And you'll see that the local revenue is probably what affects most people on this call and most of your constituents. So the biggest component of the local revenue are your local real estate taxes. And that's kind of what everyone focuses on, but there are different components of it. The state revenue, you'll see is an equal portion, but that's kind of dictated what we get from PDE. And you'll see the federal revenue is what we get for our Title I programs, Title II, Title III, and so forth. Now, what you'll notice that our federal revenue this year is high. It's roughly $10 million. On the norm, it's about $3 to $4 million of what our federal revenue is. The reason it looks high for last year is because we had to factor in a lot of ESSER money that we received last year. And you'll see the same thing on the flip side when we get to the expenditures. Okay, so as I stated, I talked about the local revenue. So this right here is a slide that shows our trends in state revenue. As I stated, the biggest portion for local is local taxes, and we'll talk on that a little bit later. But these are our state funding, and these show the basic subsidies and reimbursements that we receive. So this is a 5-year trend that we utilize, or that this is actually the actual figures that come for the past 5 years. And you can see the basic ed, 1305, voc ed, they took away. Special ed funding, you'll see the increases through the year, same with transportation, Plan Con, and so forth. Plan Con, even though Plan Con program is defunct, and hopefully it'll come back online, this is what we received for years in the past, is what you're looking at there. Health services are basically the reimbursement we get from the Department of Health for the services we provide, and that is a combination of dental assistant services as well as the nurses that we provide. So they give us a slight reduction. The property tax reduction, this is a key component of our budget. This is what we get from the state as part of that reduces some of the homestead, that when people apply for a homestead, this is where that comes from. This is the offset where that comes. This is the money that we recognize that the actual homeowner gets a discount on their bill. Okay, retirement and Social Security are reimbursements for money that we expended throughout the year on our employees. Okay. As I stated before, this is the expenditure slide. Again, I know before I ran through what instructional services, support services, and as you see the boxes underneath, this gives you a snapshot of what composes and what services or what is provided on the expenditure section. And again, you'll see that there's probably a higher amount of money spent in instructional and support services this year. Again, similar to revenue, the reason it's higher is because of ESSER funding. So last year, and it'll probably be the same component this year going in 21, we're in 21, 22. It'll probably be the same thing this year. You'll see a higher component of spending instructional and support services, as well as you saw federal revenue in this year coming forward. So I want to share this so everyone has a basic concept in the background of how our budget is composed and what makes up our budget. Are there any questions on that? Awesome. So again, I'm going to go back to, so the question always comes up, what do we spend our, what is our money spent on? This shows you that the primary function of what we spend our budget on is based around personnel. I mean, that's the primary. You figure you add up your salaries, your benefits, your other personal benefits, that and retirement. That comes out to a major chunk of your spending there. And this will show you the allocations by percentage, but this pie chart also gives you a dictation or a good snapshot of your salaries. And you see that takes up the largest chunk and component wise of our spending. Okay, so I know we talked about things in the past. What I want to do is show you a quick snapshot of where we are this year. And we showed the same information in our last BNF meeting. So currently in real estate work, we've collected approximately, as of March 15th, 2 days ago, we collected approximately $45.4 million, which is good. So if you remember last year, we collected 45.46. So there's a slight variation of $60,000 there. So if you remember last year, we actually increased our collection percentage because we realized last year there was a large amount of money out there, and the collection percentage just kind of fluctuates year to year. So we went out last year, we increased it, and we actually came in pretty good. We're about $15,000 short of our projected goal. And I think that's pretty good considering that we had the countywide reassessment. You didn't really know how that was going to affect us or how that was going to affect the actual homeowner. So right now, the outstanding people who did not pay their taxes, that was turned over to tax claim. Again, $15,000 off of that, I think, is a pretty good win in that situation. The bigger win would have been if we had a surplus, but we didn't get that. But I think $15,000 is pretty good considering we're with the unknown of the reassessment. Transfer taxes. Transfer taxes are the taxes that the district and the borough receive anytime a household is exchanged between one owner to another. There's a 1% fee charge on the cost of the house. That fee is split between the homeowner, split between the district and the borough which they live. So you'll see this year, we're actually ahead of the curve on our collection and transfer taxes. Reason being, and the same reason you're going to see in the next slide for delinquents, is because there was a large property in Darby where they're building up a home residence. I believe it's their apartments, or not sure if they're apartments or condos. Either way, but the transfer, so that came from one owner to the next. So there was a large amount that came through this year, which helped us in our transfer tax collection rate. And you'll see the same thing when I go to delinquent, same thing. There was a large amount of delinquent taxes that were sitting out there for that same property. So this year you see the anomaly. We got a bump in it while it looks as if, okay, we're about the same as last year, but we're actually ahead of where we were last year. So what we're going to do in projecting our figures for the 2022-23 year, we're going to analyze what came in this year month by month. At the same time, we may have to factor out that one hit from Darby because it's kind of an anomaly, and we're going to factor it out in our prediction for going forward. So I talked about the local revenue. I'm going to pause there. Is there any questions on that? Because I know it always raises questions when you get to local taxes and it affects the people within our communities. Are there any questions?
Overall, our projections are on target, correct?
Correct. We're slightly ahead in transfers, and I stated why, but other than that, we're on target right now. Thank you. So I'm going to talk. So I'll quickly go into our expenses. Again, same diagram or same chart I provided last year. I updated the current amounts for the current period up to the date. Again, you'll see we're on target with our spending. Keep in mind, within here, there's a lot of ESSER money factored in here, so we probably have a little bit more remaining than what's here. Right now, it's run all through the one program. When the time comes, our ESSER money will get reimbursed for it, so there will be a little bit more remaining when this actually comes to the end of the year and we get to the end of the year reconciliation process. Okay. So there are a couple items I wanted to bring up as far as budget items. The first thing I want to talk about is the healthcare. So as I'm not sure if many of you know, some of you do not know, William Penn is in the healthcare consortium within Delaware County. So within that healthcare consortium, there are about 15 or 14 school districts, and there are a couple of municipalities who actually participate in it. And with the healthcare consortium, what it does, because of the size of the group, it enables us to get a better rate on our healthcare and our scripts. Now, for this year, you'll see that we have a 3% reduction. And one of the good things about that is, because we've been in the healthcare for a while, we have what's called reserves. So the reserve factor, so even though we have a 3% reduction, what happened this year is because we have such a large reserve, once the reserve factor kicked in, it put us to a minus 3% reduction. Prior to that, we were at a 2.76 increase. So there's a benefit in us being in that healthcare consortium. So this is, and actually when I went back through and I actually evaluated all the other school districts, every other school district was roughly in the same boat we were, and they all, except for one or two, have a 3% reduction. A couple of them have a 1% reduction, but we're in the same boat with a lot of the other districts in the Delco consortium. And a lot of that factored in the reserve balance that kicked in. One thing we do have, same thing with our prescription costs. So this year, our prescription cost goes up 1%. It's $19,000 increase. So factored in your money for your savings for healthcare and your increase for scripts, you're still netting about a 125 savings overall is what we're looking at. Another major factor, and you saw this back on the chart, on that pie chart where I had the percentages, is our PSERS rates contribution. Coming up, going forward, the increase in PSERS rate is going to 35.26, which by the time you factor in increases in salary and the increase to PSERS charges, comes out to be approximately 1.2 rounded 1.15%, which is approximately $185,000 increase. So, and just to help folks who don't understand what that means, so for every dollar that a district pays an employee, we have to contribute $35 on the dollar. So I just want to make sure that people understand what that means. They look at it and say, Jeff, I don't understand. What does that mean, 35% or 34%? So for every $1, we have to contribute that percentage for that employee, okay? So one of the other bigger expenses we have going forward are salary increases. So we're approximately $1.15 million is what our increases are going to be for this year. And you'll see this is the component that makes up our salaries. You have our WPA, which is our teachers. You have WPESA and ASP. That is our support staff, which are IAs, our BMAs, and our Secretary 12, as well as one person who is our athletic trainer. Act 93 are your administrators that are out there, and ADS are your 2 confidentials, and your SSOs we have accounted 25. So by the time you put all their increases together, which are for the most part governed by their CBAs, we have about $1.1 million increase in salaries. The other component we have that we have to factor in and we have to be cognizant of as we make our budget is going to be charter schools. Last year, charter schools, so from 1920 to 2021, our charter school bills increased by approximately a little over $3 million. So I don't think we're going to have that big of an impact this year. So, and I'll tell you why. So when I analyzed the charter school enrollment figures, while there was a spike last year, when we look at the enrollments for this year for charter schools, it has come down roughly 100 kids or so. So we're still gauging that to see what that impact is going to be, but I don't think it'll be the same impact that we experienced in 2020-21 for charter schools. Okay, I want to pause again because I know I threw a lot out at everyone. Are there questions?
Yes, Jeff, I have one question. In the past, you would list charter schools that the Wimpin School District was paying out to each individual charter school. And do we have that type of presentation like we used to get in the past? How much we pay out to each charter school for regular education as well as special education?
Yeah, we have
that. And how many of our students from the Wimpin School District attending charter schools?
So great question. So right now we have approximately 870 students attending charter schools between cyber and brick and mortar. We do have that listing. I can provide that to you.
Okay, thank you.
Building on Robert's point, Jeff, that you said 800 and how many students?
870.
Roughly, what
Prior year,
percentage of that is that of the student body?
of our current student body. So
Yeah.
right now we have approximately 4,800 students, I believe. Our district. Not quick,
Including the 800 for the charter?
No, that's exclusive of those.
Okay, so percentage wise, that'd be what, maybe
20?
math is my mortal enemy, so I'm not gonna figure that
No,
out.
I'm going to ask Bob because Bob is a whiz. He'll get you that in 1 second. I know Bob. I trust Bob. But so the year before in charter school, we had approximately 960 students. So we're down roughly 90-ish students in charter schools.
I calculate 18%, but let's see what Bob has.
I got 2 whizzes. See, you know, it's great. It's great when you work with good people, you know? All right.
I'm sorry, Dr. Because what did you come up with?
18%.
Okay.
I was going to say 20, but he's quicker than I am. Okay. Are there any other questions on this slide before we go forward? Okay, I'm going to keep on moving. Okay, so one of the other issues that are going to come up in this year's budget process is the governor's budget. So one of the biggest, or one of the largest sources of revenue we have as far as state revenue is going to be our basic ed funding. Again, I stated that's our catch-all for everything, and our special education funding. Now, in an ideal world, these will cover everything we need. We know that's not the case. So what I want to do is I want to focus on basic BEF funding. This year, our estimated revenue is about $25.4 million. That was an increase from the prior year, which is phenomenal. But next year, so Governor Wolf has put out a budget. Right now, according to PDE, his budget is roughly that William Penn will receive $33 million. I'm going to say this, I'm saying don't count your chickens before they're hatched, okay? I'm just going to put it simple. If we receive that, that would be phenomenal. It would be the greatest thing ever. But realistically, there's a lot that has to happen. And this is typical for those who haven't been in this arena. It's typical that, hey, a amount is put out, the two sides get together and they find some medium place in between where everyone's happy. So right now we're kind of in that place right now. I don't think we're going to get $77 million. If we do, gosh, it'll be awesome. Same thing with special ed. You'll see there's roughly a $1.1 million increase right now. So you have two sides, and again, obviously, which this typically happens, you have one side of the aisle that basically contests where they think it should be and so forth. And keep in mind, we're actually an uncharted area. This is uncharted because there's a lot of money floating around right now, and this is part of the discussion, because you have between the stimulus package, you have ESSER funding, and quite frankly, with us, you have the fair funding lawsuit. So I don't think any of those things are going to be resolved in the next couple months. So we have to go with what we know. So typically what we've done is when as we get further along and we hear more, we change our amount. But right now we kind of go with a static funding of where we were this year until we hear something different. Typically in the past, we receive anywhere between 2.5 to 3% funding. One thing that helped us last year, and hopefully it looks as if it's going to be the same this year coming into this budget process, is that there's I believe it's called a leveling up fund.
Level up.
Level up. Thank you. Hopefully that will stay and that will go into play and we will receive additional funds above the 3%. So that will remain to be seen. Hopefully that will start shaking out more. And unfortunately for us, as we develop this budget, we probably won't know more probably till the mid or end of May. Okay. Again, this is an important topic. So I'm going to pause again, ask for any input, questions, thoughts.
Yeah, Jeff, what was for the proposed basic education funding for last year? What was the difference between the estimated amount and the proposed amount?
So hold tight. I'm going to quickly go back through a couple slides and I'll show you. Ooh, I went the wrong way. I apologize. Here we go. Sorry about that. So 2 years ago was $23 million. So this year our estimated is, what I said, 25. So that's about a $2 million difference right there. Or no, it's probably not, because that's higher up. That's about 20, that's almost 24.
But that's what we got, right?
That's what we got 2021. So
How much did Wolf propose in that year? What was the difference between
I,
those two?
that I
numbers?
don't know. I can go back and look.
Okay.
I have to go back through my
If you don't have it
spreadsheet.
now, that's fine. I'm just curious, that's all.
Right. Okay. Let me go back where we were. Thank you. Okay. Are there any more questions on this slide before we go forward? Okay. So another issue that that's gonna come up this year, which I'm excited to talk about, is our facilities master plan. And I'm gonna quickly jump to this and share this with folks here. And you all have access to this. I'm not gonna go into this in detail, and you can see here, I'm gonna quickly cover the issues. It's to improve our building infrastructure, alleviate overcrowding, update student academic environments. And these are issues. You'll see these here. Again, I'm not going to read these. Everyone can read it, but it's to improve that infrastructure, alleviate the crowding, and the issues. So as you see here, we have a plan set up. It's a 10-year plan. And a lot of it starts actually this year. And hopefully we can follow this plan all the way through. You'll see right now we're looking at Kerrfield, and we're looking at Evans and East Lansdowne as part of our first steps in this process. Overall, I think the improvements will increase our educational process and will ultimately increase our property value. So I think it's an awesome plan. So I think right now, one thing we need is to get the word out. We need support. So one thing we have done is we created this flyer. And this flyer right here, this flyer accompanied with a letter. This flyer has already been sent out to a lot of the local governments, borough councils and so forth. But we also have this is also coming out to your homes. We have a letter coming out along with this letter stating what is needed. Keep in mind, we don't want people to get scared that, okay, they're not going to touch my community. Almost every district, every building will be touched. Some will have more support than others, but everything will come in time. So I wanted to share this so everyone sees it. Please, I ask that you share this with your community, share with your constituents, can share with everyone you can. Again, the overall goal here is that this will improve our educational process, improve it for the students. It'll also help the community. I think once you see this, you will have people, it will be the pride that people actually look for within the community. So I think it's a great thing. I think it's long overdue, and hopefully we can do this and see it through. So I want to share this. This is the major component of what we're going to be doing over this year, as well as years to come. So again, I'm going to pause right there again. So the question may come, someone may say, Jeff, what does this cost us? So for right now, in the last board meeting, we approved to borrow approximately $10 million. We have another vote coming up, which is part of the process. So for this year, the approximate increase for property assessment would be on the house valued at 125 would be about $39. So as we progress through this venture, as we borrow more money, that yearly increase may go up more. But right now, for this year, what we're discussing, what our focus on is a $39 increase per household valued at $125,000. And that's about the median assessment of a property right now in the William Penn School District. So again, I'm going to pause right there because I know that's a very heavy topic. I know that's going to cause a lot of eyebrows raising, but I think it's important that everyone understands we're going to need support from everyone in the community to make this happen and to progress forward. So I'm going to pause again.
Jeff,
Yes,
on the property assessed that, you're giving an example of property assessed at 125,000 will be paying $39 increase. Can you do that so you would have like properties assessed at a lower value, say 65 or
Sure,
something like that?
sure, yes.
Because some
so-
of our communities' properties are not assessed at this value.
Sure, yeah, and I can do that. Yes, we have that. I have that actually on a spreadsheet. I just picked the median because I try to find what it would look like for me. Yes, but I do have that available if that question, or if I can provide it to you.
So it'd be like a higher and a lower number, so,
Yep,
you know, they
yeah, it
can
would
see
go up
that.
accordingly. Yes.
Thank you.
Any further questions? Okay, hearing none. So the next, and this is also related, somewhat related to facilities master plan, but so every school district has what's called an S&P rating. So an S&P rating basically, and I'll put it in layman's terms for what I like to look at it. To me, it's your credit score is what I look at it as. So a couple of years ago, our S&P rating, actually, we were provided with our rating was downgraded to a BBB plus with a negative outlook. So, and you'll see here through the last couple of years, and because of things that we've done and some of the, and we benefited actually from some of the ESSER funding, we were able, and I just had an S&P rating this week, where S&P ratings, where they come in, they interview me, they interview what it is that we're doing, what are we doing to change the tide. So we were able to get our S&P rating from a negative outlook to a stable outlook. So that's phenomenal. So that's actually great. So, and I got confirmation of that last week, and I had another S&P rating this week. And what I want to share is that I took a little snippet out of what the rationale that they gave me for making a stable. And I'm going to read this because the outlook revision reflects our view that budgetary performance has improved, stabilizing available fund balance after significant drawdowns in previous fiscal years. What this means, and I had to share this, and I make sure everyone understands, the reason our rating dropped in years past is because we were using fund balance as a source of revenue to balance the budget. So I state that to say that as we go forward and as we progress through some of the facilities master plan and so forth, we have to come up with a reliable source of revenue. So your reliable source of revenue is going to be either the state comes through with additional money, or it's going to be the increase in taxes. And I understand it's not a topic that people want to talk about, people want to approach, but I think we have to keep in mind, if we go back to past methodology of trying to supplement the budget through fund balance, your outlook is going to go back to negative or downgrade even more. And that's going to present a problem for borrowing money going forward. Not that you can't borrow money, but you're probably going to get a lesser rate, and your choices are going to be limited. So I'm going to, again, I just want to make sure that everyone understands that, and I'll probably revisit this topic as we go through. But I wanted to make sure that I get it out, everyone understands exactly what's in front of us and what the challenges are as we prepare this budget and budgets going forward. So as I stated on every slide, I'm going to stop and pause there, and I'm going to open it up for questions or thoughts. All right, you guys are scaring me because I was expecting a whole bunch of hands going up, but I'm okay with that.
So Jeff,
All right.
thank you very much for your presentation. It was very thorough and you were very detailed. What brings to mind is the last statements that you made with regard to finding a permanent resource, you know, or also the increasing of taxes. So what were your suggestions with regard to the resource? If you could elaborate a little bit on that.
So the additional resource you're going to have as you go through is that whether it's additional funding, and whether it be from it would have to be from the state, because that's the only outside funding you have. You have state or federal. Federal is kind of constant. Even though the state is fairly constant, there's some variables that are happening with state funding, as I stated before, with the basic ed funding or the special ed funding. So that's going to be the biggest variable that you're going to find, because everything else is kind of a kind of static across the board. So outside of getting additional state funding or getting, that's what you're going to need to make sure that we go forward. Again, this is about balancing the budget. So what we have to be careful of is not relying, because this is their concern. Their concern was you've been depleting fund balance to offset your budget. And this is where they get scared. When I say they, I mean S&P. So this is their rationale of, wait a minute, this isn't stable. This isn't a proper way to fund what you're trying to do.
Okay, thank you for explaining that.
Okay.
But it also opens up the need to be thoughtful, creative, find some very rich sponsor, come up with creative resources, additional resources to help fund. So that's what it brings to mind to me.
And Ms. Cook, you raise a great point. It does. But I think where they're going, I think one thing we have to look at is this. So what their position is, that's a one-time hit. They're looking for consistent sources or consistent streams going forward. So I think I think in their eyes, getting somebody to throw money at a one-time thing is the same thing as getting a one-time or taking out a fund balance. So I think that was their concern, that we have consistent streams. And maybe I should have stated that earlier. I apologize. It should
No
be,
worries, I got it.
it should be that consistent stream going forward that they look for as a source of strength in the revenue.
Understood,
So-
Jeff. I was just coming to the place that it behooves us just in every opportunity to be creative, and it just
Yes,
puts my thinking cap on. If it's a one-timer, it will still have a positive impact, but I do understand your explanation and what they're looking for. I'm good.
Cool. Ms. Boykins, you had a question?
Yes, so it's so going back to the consistent stream, it's like the only consistent stream would be from the state. You know, like if I sit back and yes, we can get a as Ms. Val was saying with regard to we can get a donor and things of that nature or sponsorship, but at the end of the day, we would have to really think, and it definitely calls for creative minds, but it's just like, man, if the state would definitely you know, do their job with regard to this. Another question I had was with regard to the pie chart that you had showed. Usually, typically, with regard to school districts, personnel is usually the highest paying with regard to the highest expenditure rate.
Right.
Mhm. Yes.
Okay.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah. Yes. Without, because keep in mind, majority of your workforce are according your teaching realms as well as your support staff and so forth. So yes, that's your biggest expense in most school districts. I think actually I don't want to say most businesses, but you'll find in a lot of businesses, your staffing, depending on what the area or the content is, will be your personnel costs.
Well, we're a service business, and in a service business, your personnel would be your highest cost across the board, whether it's education or any other service-related business. And Ms. Boykins, to your point, you're correct. We do, for a consistent revenue stream, do rely on the state doing their job. Level Up has committed to being consistent. It's just a question of how much of an increase we get year over year, in my mind. I believe when they did Level Up, there was a 10-year commitment.
But that's awesome. That would be awesome.
Yeah.
Jeff,
Yes, sir.
what is our fund balance at this time? How much do we have in
We're
the fund
about
balance?
$2.2 million in fund balance.
All right, thank you.
But remember, you know, and as a note to the board, our credit folks said, don't use that to cover operating. Like that should stay at 2.2. Because if not, our credit rating will go down. How often do they do our credit rating, Jeff?
So typically, once you get it, if you don't, you get it every 2 years.
Okay.
once you borrow, they do a call rating then. So every year that you borrow, they're going to come back and do it. If you don't do a borrowing, it'll be every 2 years.
So, and we have a plan borrow every year for the next 5 years.
We're going to have a call rating every year.
Okay.
We're going to have. So they're going to come in. So they're going to come in, and what they do is they look at all your information, everything is reported. They're going to look at all your budgets. They're reported, all your AFR and everything, and then they go and they put it through their evaluation process, and they're going to ask you questions. Okay, how do you plan on surviving? How do you plan on doing this? What's going to be your major cost? What change major in your district? So one thing we were able to do this year, and I'm going to give him some praise, was one thing when we talked to them, I was hyping up our PLC program. I mean, you should see me. I was hyping it up, but that was one of the issues that they cited when they gave us our evaluation, was the way in which our PLC program was laid out, and I stated to them, I told them how we have a lot of people who are asking to join it. And I think, and I don't know that there's a direct correlation, but I made the correlation that part of our enrollment drop in charter schools is due to our popularity of our PLC program. So I want to thank, you know who he is, but I want to thank the person who helped us put this PLC program together. And I think that's part of what helped us get that stable rating.
Right. So if we are re-credit checked every year and we go down in credit rating, that will ultimately cost us money when we borrow every year.
Correct. I mean, look at it like this. And this, again, I try to equate it to my home spending. If your credit rating goes down, you'll probably get somebody to lend you money, but you're going to get a higher rate. You're going to get a low ball lender, if that makes sense.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Kopp.
Okay. So I think that brings us to the end of this presentation. Let me go forward one. So one thing I want to talk about before we get to the next meeting, and I'm following the format that we used last year for these budget advisory meetings. Next meeting, we'll have more estimated figures that we're going to bring forth from this current year as far as expenditures and revenues. We'll have more concrete data, and we'll have projections that we're looking forward going into next year. So that will be the 21st, and then depending on how that meeting goes and how things evolve with PDE and things, because that's going to be the biggest factor in what we do. We will definitely have we will have a BNF meeting on the 19th. We may do a conjunction meeting with the advisory committee, so they're aware. And then we're looking for our preliminary budget on the 23rd, and then the final adoption will be the 27th. Okay. Again, I'm just going to rehash real quick. Everyone's going to get those flyers about the facilities master plan that's coming out probably within the next week and a half. Again, I encourage everyone to share it. Put a positive. I think it's a positive thing. I think we need to put it out there and see if we can gather support for that going forward. And I'm going to stop sharing. If anyone has any questions before we conclude this meeting, let's take them now.
So at this time, Jeff, with regard to, when it comes down to us getting to voting on the budget and with regard to increase of taxes, are there any just preliminary suggestions of, what I know we have to be, 1 to 5 or under 5. Are there any suggestions of what number you would throw out there? Just I know we're far away from it, but just asking.
I'll probably have a more clearer number next month as we factor and pull more things together. So once I get that, I can provide that next month.
Okay, that'll be great. Just so we can, as a board, start discussing what our options are and things of that nature, because we know that's coming. So that's why I was just asking. Thank you.
Correct. No, great question. Any other questions? Well, awesome. I thank everyone for their time tonight. If there are no further questions, we can adjourn the meeting, and I will see everyone for this purpose. I'll see everyone on the, was it the 17th? Yes.
17.
Yes. Other than that, I'll see everyone else Monday night at the committee meeting.
Thank you, everyone. Have a good evening.
Take care.
I